question 1, did Mr. Trump rape Miss Carroll? The jury voted no. On the question of did Mr. Trump sexually abuse Ms. Carroll? Yes, the jury said. Moving down to question 4, Ms. Carroll was injured as a result of Mr. Trump's conduct. The jury said yes. And if yes, inserting an amount of $2 million, a monetary judgment against the former president. Keep in mind, E. Jean Carroll's attorneys did not ask for a specific amount of money. They left it to the jury. Moving on to the question, Mr. Trump's conduct was willfully or wantonly negligent, reckless, or done with a conscious disregard of the rights. Yes, the jury said. Now, moving down to the defamation question, there were ultimately 5 questions related to that accusation. Did Ms. Carroll prove by preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Trump's statement was defamatory? The jury said yes, it was. Did Ms. Carroll prove by clear and convincing evidence that Mr. Trump's statement was false? The jury said yes. Mr. Trump made the statements with actual malice. The jury, yes. And then we're still waiting on some of these other questions. But again, the big headline there, the jury finding that Mr. Trump did sexually abuse Ms. Carroll.
There should be any liability finding, so we'll pursue it. We'll pursue that.
But Trump has signed a sex abuse. How is that going to sit with him?
That's what I just said about the appeal, right? We're going to be appealing it. But she claimed all along that she had been raped by Donald Trump. That's what this case was all about.
Can you talk about Trump's decision not to attend his trial and not to testify?
Yeah, this was a circus atmosphere. And having him be here would be more of a circus. And again, what I said in the summation yesterday, reigns true. Holds true. It's that, what more could he say other than I didn't do it? And he said that on the oath here. It's hard to prove a negative. Molly, I could say you stole my pen, prove you didn't do it. How would you prove it? To say you didn't do it, right? I mean, it's sort of where we're at. So, it's very simplistic to say, oh, he should have testified. He had nothing to say other than what he's already said on the oath. So
you talked a little bit about how perplexing the verdict was. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good to see you, man.
Good seeing you. How does that play in the appeal? The fact that she called it a rape case all along.
And I think it's an inconsistent verdict, right? And it's something that obviously will be another issue for appeal. But, Jim, the issue for the appeals were laid really months ago when things like, Donald Trump's attempt to have the dress tested for DNA after they sent it into a lab and didn't come up with semen. I think that's something that was important. The fact that the Reid Hoffman, the Democratic financier, who Ms. Carroll was not candid about when she testified initially under oath in her deposition, that should come into this case. The Access Hollywood tape should not have come into this case. There's a federal rule called 403 that balances out inflammatory and prejudicial things, and that certainly was one of them. So, but there's plenty of issues to appeal. And look, that's what happens, right? We're in one sense gratified, and I know some people in this camp are very happy that the rape claim was rejected, but I'm not, and I am happy about that certainly, but I'm not happy that he was found liable for anything whatsoever, because on this evidence I didn't think he should have been.
Okay, Tuesday, 9 May, year of our Lord 2023. As we said, Victory Day in Russia. Yesterday was Victory in Europe Day for the Western Allies 78 years later. And here we are in the middle of all of it, invasion of our country and the southern border, absolute collapse of our economy and capital markets and our bonds. We're going to go, my crack team here and in Memphis for the second hour is all over. Kevin McCarthy's announced, which I got to figure out why. Because what he did at the Sticks was so incredible. And look, I've been as critical as Kevin McCarthy as anybody. We had the back of Gates in the Magnificent Six during the big fight in January. And Kevin McCarthy did what you saw. And we're going to pull some clips for tomorrow morning. You see, he had a master class at those Sticks outside the White House. But they've just announced they're going to do a live press conference at quarter after. We'll go to that. We got an amazing show, and we're going to probably have to move some guests tomorrow morning, but we'll get to all of it. First off, I want to get Karoline Leavitt. The reason I reached out to Karoline, she's over at MAGA Inc., but Karoline is a very special young woman. She's been in the White House. She knows President Trump personally. She is a live free or die Granite Stater, tough as boot leather. And I wanted her on to kind of address these. You heard Tacopino about the appeal, and of course there's nothing on the rape. That was all thrown out. Give us your assessment. And I would like to have your assessment as someone that's associated, you're on the PAC, and you're also a young woman. Give me your assessment of all this today, ma'am.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Steve. And I speak for myself, and I believe millions of women across this country who are outraged at this justice system in our country. As today's case and verdict proves, this is just another continuation in the years-long witch hunt against President Trump, a president who uplifted women across this country with his economic policies, with his reinvigoration of our domestic energy production, the fact that unemployment for women under his administration were at record lows. Now we look at Joe Biden's presidency. Women are suffering because of the Democrat socialist policies coming out of this White House. Women are being robbed $700 every single month. And it's making the lives of all Americans much, much more difficult. E. Jean Carroll is not a woman that anyone should be uplifting or commending. She is a political activist whose legal fees were bankrolled by a Democrat donor, Joe Biden's #1 donor back in 2019. E. Jean Carroll and her friend.
Hang on. Don't bury the lead. Reid Hoffman is a mega donor. He may be the biggest. He's definitely the biggest donor to Biden, and he's also a total radical. He supports this entire radical agenda, the cultural radical agenda. This guy is a radical. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think, and Tacopino alluded to it, I think she either lied about it in the deposition or had truthiness, right? She never really came forward and said about this radical mega donor, big tech oligarch that's really that she's just an instrument for his hatred of MAGA. Am I incorrect there, ma'am?
No, that's exactly right. E. Jean Carroll is just another tool for the far left Democrats to tear down Donald Trump. Reid Hoffman, as you said, Steve, is bankrolling her legal fees. Reid Hoffman is a mega donor to a super PAC for Joe Biden, and he has donated millions of dollars to Democrat candidates across the board. He's also been involved in funding misinformation campaigns in states in this country as well. So nobody should take this woman seriously. Nobody should take this jury seriously, to be frank, which is quite sad to say. But this case happened in very liberal New York, same instance as far left District Attorney Alvin Bragg's case, where Democrats outweigh Republicans by a margin of 7-1. And so justice was not occurred today by any means. I'm glad to hear Joe Tacopina and the best legal team in the business will be appealing this case. And frankly, it's insulting to myself and women everywhere across America who are hurting because of Joe Biden's economy, who are fearful in our American cities because of Joe Biden's lawlessness, and who fear that our children and grandchildren, future generations of Americans, will cease to exist because we are on the brink of a nuclear war. I just got off of a very liberal talk show panel where everyone was foaming at the mouth talking about today's case. And it's insulting to me that the mainstream media wants to focus on this when Title 42 is set to expire in 48 hours and we have an invasion in this country right now.
We have teams down there. We've got tons of more stuff. We're going to go live to the press conference on the debt ceiling. We got, if we can get to it tonight, Brian Costello, the Times of London, and Coronation Weekend puts the only story that makes the front page is about Sequoia Capital, a Chinese Communist Party front operation in Silicon Valley, funding the artificial intelligence out of control weapons systems for the Chinese, and then funneling the profits back to the Democratic Party. There's so many massive stories about the sovereignty of this own nation. One last thing before I leave you, Karoline. I call this the summer of joy, not the summer of joy, because they can't beat Trump in the ballot box. Today, Morning Consult, and Morning Consult is not Richard Barris, it's not Trafalgar, it's not a Gateway pundit poll. Morning Consult is, I would say, not a Trump fan poll. 60-19 or 60-16 with DeSantis. DeSantis is now into the teens. Trump's got huge spreads. Rasmussen, ABC News is getting him up 7 or 8 points over Biden. The spread, increases. He's up 10 points in some polls, but they're coming. They can't beat him at the ballot box. They can't beat MAGA. We're ascendant. They can't beat the Trump movement, but they're coming. And I just want to make sure this audience understands. Today is the first of many. They are coming. They're going to use the 2-tier justice system and a weaponized DOJ to come against Donald Trump. Is what are your thoughts on that, ma'am? Your observations?
Absolutely, you are right, Steve. It started back when he came down that escalator in 2015. We saw it with the Hillary Clinton funded Steele dossier, Russia hoax, sham impeachment 1, sham impeachment 2, the unconstitutional raid at Mar-a-Lago, the endless investigations into President Trump's taxes and his family's business dealings. Meanwhile, we have a president right now, Joe Biden, who has compromised our national security through his corrupt crackhead son, Hunter. It's a slap in the face to every hardworking American citizen in this country who cares about law and order, who truly cares about a standard of justice, who cares about having a good economy for them and their families. That's why Americans, independents, Republicans, and soft-leaning Democrats are rallying around President Trump more than ever before. They know he's a unique threat to the establishment. We must reelect this man, and I am honored to be a very small part in that effort.
Karoline, how did they get to MAGA Inc.? And I think I told you before you came on how much our audience really appreciates and likes those spots. The pudding one may have been a little edgy, right? But the Social Security ones have been amazing. And I keep saying, and I'm a fan of Governor DeSantis as governor. I don't think he's ready to go to the next level. And quite frankly, I think some of the things he's doing is hurting even the possibility to go next level in 28. But I've been adamant about this. I believe Governor DeSantis needs to come forward and walk through his thinking when he was one of these guys that was adamant about taking down Social Security and Medicare. And I think he has not come forward with that. And I think it's vitally important he does that, because I think these numbers in the teens is going to be very hard to turn around. But Karoline, how do people get to MAGA Inc., the PAC, and how do they get to you?
Yeah, that's right. We'll continue to expose the truth about Ron DeSantis. We'll continue to emphasize why life in Donald Trump's America much better than life in Joe Biden's America, and will ensure President Trump is reelected for another 4 years. Go to MAGAPAC.com, MAGA Inc. War Room on Twitter, Truth Social, and personally, you can find me at A. Leavitt, NH, Karoline Leavitt, New Hampshire. Thank you, Steve, as always, for having me on.
Karoline, I couldn't think of a better person, I mean this, in all of Trump world to have on to address this incident today than Karoline Leavitt of the Granite State. Live free or die, ma'am.
Thank you. God bless you.
Think if we had Karoline Leavitt in Congress right now. Unbelievable. Just a fighter to her core. Okay, I got Tina Descovich. I want to play this, and Tina understands we may have to have her tomorrow, but I got to play this cold open for her because they're coming after the moms of liberty like you've never seen before. Let's go ahead and play this, and then I'm going to jump in about the Guardian article and bring on Tina Descovich.
Pretty good here. You get right to the heart of the matter, that it's hardly novel for Republicans to emphasize the need to improve schools. Ronald Reagan administration published a report, A Nation at Risk, that inaugurated the modern education reform debate. But you continue. What sets the current movement apart from these previous efforts is not merely its greater intensity, but its focus. Academic achievement levels are incidental to Republicans' concern. Their main preoccupation is not the ways in which Chinese and Swedish kids may be outpacing their American counterparts. They are instead accusing schools of carrying out an insidious indoctrination campaign that they believe poses an existential threat to their party's future and their way of life. And I guess, Jonathan, my first question is, do they really believe this? Do they really believe that, like, don't say gay is so important that it's existential to the future, or banning certain books? Really?
Yeah, I think they do. And that's really the number one point I want to make in this piece, is that I think a lot of people who aren't hardcore conservative Republicans see this as a cynical messaging exercise and just an attempt to rile people up. But I really think that conservative Republicans believe this. They're
on, and I want to play this entire thing, but we are jammed today. We got the press conference, other things. I got Tina Descovich off, but and that thing was Jonathan Chait is one of the most important thinkers on the left. He's a senior guy at New York Magazine. He's a very smart guy, and they know exactly what they're doing here. Also, The Guardian at the same time has a huge headline. They're doing a book review on a new book called Birchers, How the John Birch Society Radicalized the American Right. It's actually an incredible book. But they say, oh, Moms for Liberty is just the modern version of the John Birch Society. Tina Descovich, you're doing something right, girl. You and Tiffany Justice are the moms. Because trust me, New York Magazine, Jonathan Chait, the Guardian, they're coming hard for you guys. I mean, walk us through. What is his... Well, he's saying that you guys are just angry messaging. This is not real. You never think about... You don't care about the reading scores. And quite frankly, every time you guys are on, you and Tiffany are on, you're always talking about people falling behind in reading. The scores are disgusting. Just talk to us about New York Magazine, the article, and also the Guardian, saying that you're the modern version of the John Birch Society. Ma'am.
It's wild to watch what's happening, Steve. But to tell you what's happening is we're winning. So we stay focused on our messaging. You know that. We say the same thing practically every time we're on here. We keep marching forward. We know the public education system disaster. And so what we saw is first they started slinging names at us, bigots, racist, homophobe, all those things. It didn't stick. People started to see us for who we were. We started exposing the failures in education. And then they started saying it's not happening. If you remember with CRT and with the gender ideology, it's not happening. It's not happening. Well, we keep exposing and shining. So they can't say that anymore. So if you would have played that whole piece, what they've moved on to is, well, it's happening, but not that often. It's very rare, and they're blowing it out of proportion. And so we're not going to stop. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to keep moving forward, exposing the failure of public education. And they're just going to have to keep trying different ways to take us down.
What I want to address look, I didn't have time to play another 5 minutes. I will get a chance and figure out how to get you and Tiffany on to play the whole thing because it's important. But I want to address his concern, which is the principal driving thing. And if we can get this New York Magazine article, if Mo and Grace can put that up and make sure everybody sees it, and Carly Bonet and the team over Midnight Rider, they actually say, he says that you and Tiffany Just, all these moms are in the quote unquote money in back of you, which you know you have no money back of you. You're the most cynical people in America. And here's why. That you never address what the real problems are in the classroom as far as kids falling behind and the horrific numbers we just had in history. Kids don't know any history. Of course, they don't know any math, and all the numbers are through the floor. But that you've just taken these cultural issues, particularly the LGBTQ, and you're using that as a wedge to get in and just to destroy public schools. Your whole thing is destroy public education and make sure the Christian nationalists have their private schools and the homeschool freaks have their kids, their weird kids in homeschooling. But you're there to really, what the Birchers have wanted to do for a long time is destroy public education. Your response, ma'am.
We have said from day one, I mean, our children, Tiffany and I, the co-founders, our children are in public education. We served on school 4 years of my life. So did Tiffany, dedicated to our local school districts. We love public education. We know it is a necessity in America, but it is failing. It is failing. 2/3 of American children in 4th grade cannot read on grade level. The lowest math scores in the history of the United States right now. The lowest reading score since the 1980s. There's on account, everybody's study, everybody's radar, it is failing. If we don't do something, America is in real trouble. Our children's future is at risk.
I want to, if Memphis can put it up, if not, I want to make sure everybody gets it. There's also a Guardian besides MSNBC with Mika, who, Mika's a huge fan of you and Tiffany, and the Moms for Liberty. Besides having with Chait on from the New Yorker New York Magazine, to go after you guys about being the most cynical messaging group, the Guardian did a review of this book, and I really like this book. And by the way, this book is Trump hating, MAGA hating, American patriots hating. Trust me, it's a tough read, but it's a good detailed analysis. They actually, in the review of the book, The Birchers, in the headline, They got basically Moms for Liberty. One of the reasons they did that is for click. Moms for Liberty is so over the target. They know if they put that in the headline, boom, the left winger is going to immediately, put it in there. They came after you of being the modern version of the John Birch Society. Your response, ma'am.
I think it's ridiculous. We are our own organization. America really hasn't seen anything quite like us before. Do we share some of the concerns of the John Birch Society? about America? Yes, we absolutely, because we see some of those things unfolding. We are not the John Bircher Society. I think I texted Tiffany when I saw that headline and I said, oh, look, now we're Birchers, apparently. They try to stick any name on us that they think might stick enough to hurt us and bring us down, but we reject all of those things.
Tina, thank you so much. How do people get to Monster Liberty? How do they get to social media? And I commit to you, and because it's so good. It's so they hate it. They hate you guys so much. I commit that we're going to have you back on and play the entire 5-minute segment with the editor at New York Magazine. It's that good, and the audience will love it.
Please play that whole thing. It is fantastic. I mean, they try to put us down. They try to marginalize us. They go through every step of anything they can do to shut us down. Or now they're to the point where they just want to slow us down, I think, instead of shutting us down, because they've learned that's not going to work. But, Steve, everybody can find us at our website, momsforliberty.org, and on all social media, not moms4.
You can tell an institution by its enemies. You got pretty good enemies there, Tina. Don't stop.
We'll take them.
We'll
take them.
You'll take them.
Hey,
when you're at the war room, you're in the fight club. Nothing but fighters. Okay, I've got some time. I'm going to slip this out. I'm going to have another also give more time to develop this. Hopefully tomorrow. Let me bring in Brian Costello. Here's the thing. And look, we pride ourselves in keeping the war room posse, the war room audience, always ahead of the curve. And I'd say this show, what we try to do is we present the show as we would present a board of directors, our presentation to what they call the C-suites, the CEOs and the chairman. Always to give you factual information to connect dots and then let you think about it, work it through yourself and then come to your own conclusions. One of the things we've been working on is the Silicon Valley, the money flowing between the tech oligarchs and Wall Street, the CCP, and also artificial intelligence. And over the weekend in the Times of London, and the Times of London is really the world paper. I talk about a lot, the Financial Times or the Times of London, owned by Murdoch. But it's always been a great paper. And this weekend with the coronation going on, they had, a big thing. They haven't had too many coronations, just one in the last 70 years. They able to have an article. We put that article up. This article was, wait for it, about Sequoia Capital. And particularly funding, Sequoia Capital, funding the CCPs, even they say, out of control's arm race on artificial intelligence, probably the most dangerous area in the world right now, unless you're talking about bioweapons. Brian Costello, give me your thoughts. Break this article down for our audience. And how important is this article popped up right now?
It's one, thanks for having me on again, Steve, and following two high energy guests. So I think I have to turn it up a little here. But I was shocked when I saw it, because for the most part the media has avoided this story except for you and Fox and a couple other publications. So when it came out this morning or on over the weekend, I was shocked, particularly with the coronation and everything. But it's like, this is the race, right? The race is for technology, and she laid this out in 2013, and right now it's artificial intelligence. And candidly, Steve, the article didn't even hit some of the big stuff. Sequoia's funded a company called 4Paradigm, which is making military command control systems using artificial intelligence. And it's actually engineers who came from ByteDance. So 4Paradigm wasn't even mentioned in the article. But this is the race. I mean, this is what it's about.
But here's what's so shocking about it. And this is why, and people should know, we're meeting all the time. We're talking to people. From our first couple, we had FBI guys. I know Colonel Harvey, you had people come to you, people on certain the committees and the intelligence committee, because there's a big problem here. And here's the central problem. The central problem is that the American citizen, this is like a Greek tragedy where your greatest strength becomes your weakness. The American people's pension fund money and insurance company money is going into these, as a manager of an asset class, these venture capitalists, part of their money. That's what's funding this fund, the $9.8 billion that Neil Shen, a CCP operative, is using to do this Chinese venture capital fund with American money. And that is going into funding not just their own national security and defense. Now they're funding the most advanced weapon systems, which are things related to artificial intelligence. We are funding not just our own demise. We're funding Give me a minute of that before I go to break. I mean, that is what's so shocking about this story, sir.
Yeah, I mean, so, one of the companies mentioned in it was BGI, the genomic sequencing company, right? So Massachusetts Pension Fund, and Elizabeth Warren knows this, funded Sequoia China. Thermo Fisher Scientific is a genome sequencing company in Massachusetts. So the own pension dollars of firemen, firefighters, teachers in Elizabeth Warren's home state are funding Neil Shannon, competitors to one of their own companies. And these have, genome sequencing has a lot of applications in terms of bioweapons and things like that. So there's a direct threat there. And Steve, like, one thing I'll tell you, if you remember, sometimes a hidden in plain sight scam seems obvious after the fact. And if you remember, Harry Markopoulos on Bernie Madoff was like, hey, you just can't perform at that level for that period of time. It's just statistically not possible.
Yes.
Well, Neil Shannon's been the top investor in the world in a communist country. So you don't think he's working for the Chinese government? It's a hidden, and he works in America.
The follow. Okay, hang over a second. We're going to take a short break. Brian Costello on the other side. We're going to go to the press conference as soon as it starts. Looks like it's a little late. They're saying it's going to happen. Short break. Back in the war room in just a moment.
Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, I've got Brian Costello. I also have our own Natalie Winters. I'm going to bring Natalie in on this conversation. She's got something new to report. And we're waiting momentarily. As I said, I'm not sure this press conference was a great idea because I think he had a master class outside the White House at the Sticks, which is hard to do. That's what MSNBC, because all they're going to do is play the Carol thing tonight. Okay, all of them. But if they play something McCarthy or pull something, you have no upside in having another press conference. You just don't. So hopefully, level heads over there will wave this off. If not, we will cover it. Okay, I think I got a better picture, and I want to thank Memphis, my own crack team here. If you pull up the Times of London, that the story on the screen, Memphis, and see what we got there. This is over Coronation Weekend, and this thing is so brutal. Brian, you were continuing on about how American pension fund money is going in to fund this. And I want people to understand this is not just like for a missile. It's not like McCarthy did. Okay, I tell you what, guys, hang on. We're going to go live. We're going to go live to Capitol Hill right now. We're going to hear Kevin McCarthy one more time and see what this is about.
A responsible, sensible agreement that can raise the debt limit and put us on a path to get our spending under control that has been harming the American families. He told me at that meeting, and he tweeted later that he agreed that we would meet. I saw him the very next day at the prayer breakfast. He said we would meet. He told the members there we were going to meet. He then apparently must have changed his mind. For 97 days, he denied our ability to meet together. I wanted to work out a negotiation, an agreement that we could do something bipartisan, that we would not be at this moment today about the debt ceiling. But because they refused, we went on our own and we put a bill together, as you remember watching. I tried to find ideas that Democrats have proposed. Joe Manchin had proposed capping spending going into the future at 1% growth. We put that in. The president, as a senator, had voted for work requirements. In Wisconsin, just a couple months ago, they passed by 82%. We looked at common sense ideas like pulling back the COVID money that wasn't spent, especially after the president had signed the bill that the pandemic was over. Even the World Health Organization has now announced the pandemic is over. We looked at places for growth, that we could cut red tape so we can build things in America again. And we raised the debt ceiling. The Senate has not, and we sent it to the Senate. What's so remarkable is, in this presidency, with this new Congress, this is the very first time he has sat down with all four leaders. Of all the challenges that we have in America, with Title 42 being lifted and the border unsecure, with 3 of the 4 largest banks' failures happening in the last few months because of inflation and the rise of the interest rates, with the Democrats spending too much, we never met. We only met today because the House did the responsible thing and raised the debt ceiling put growth, and gave us savings. Unfortunately, in this meeting, I heard nothing new. I literally asked the president personally, do you believe there's any place in government we could find savings? I know they said things that were not true about how we would move forward. And I had to explain to the president, the only thing we're asking is that next year we spend the same amount of money that we spent 5 months ago. And we let appropriators decide how we dole up that money, just like every other household. I didn't find progress in this meeting. Staff will continue to meet, and we'll get back together on Friday, and hopefully the president then can change the path for the last 97 days. With that, let me open up with questions. Yes, ma'am.
What are the meetings of staff? What are they going to be talking about specifically?
To see if we could find places that we could find savings and be able to come to an agreement on a debt
Do
ceiling.
you plan to have like an entire budget framework in order to lift the debt limit?
Well, this is interesting because I don't want to confuse the people at home. A budget is different than a debt ceiling, okay? So a budget only does two things. Most people would assume a budget is like in a state capitol, where you pass a budget in the House, it goes to the Senate, and the president signs it. In Congress, that's not how it works. A budget only sets the dollar figure, the 302As for those on the inside, of how much you would spend. And that's what we're talking about, what we spent 5 months ago. That is something that we would have to work out in a debt ceiling. It's much like what Nancy Pelosi did when she was Speaker, where she told President Trump that we could not raise the debt ceiling until we get the spending levels agreed to. Now, they advocated for more money, and then they advocated for $6 trillion more, and then they brought us inflation and the problems we have today. It's the exact same thing we're trying to work through.
So budget
Could you explain?
Yeah.
Excuse me, just if you could explain this. You're meeting, but you guys, the White House still, in your telling, won't accept a deal alongside the debt limit. So,
well, the president tries to say, okay, I'll do a budget agreement, but the debt ceiling has to be just raised. Well, every way we do this, all the times before, is you do the agreement together. I tried to explain that to him. You know, the president, when he was vice president, they were the Biden negotiations. The president, when he was senator, he voted against raising the debt ceiling. When he was vice president, our debt was $14 trillion. Today it's $31 trillion. And he said then that we got to take care of it, the debt, because it's too large. We got to find ways that we could find savings. He literally voted against the debt ceiling when he was senator because he said, I didn't care about how it was created, but we're not doing enough to stop this. And now today he thinks differently. So whatever goes forward is not just going to be raising the debt ceiling. It's going to be just like we did in the House. We will raise the debt ceiling with doing changes within our spending. Yes.
Are you willing to do a short-term debt
No.
limit?
Yes.
Are you going to continue to stand by George Santos now that he's been indicted on federal charges? And will you stand by President Trump after a jury found him liable on sexual abuse?
I'm not going to avoid your question, but as you know, I've been at the White House. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the indictment, but as you know, with George Santos, I did not put him on any committees. For those like Senator Menendez, who was indicted and went to trial, he was still able to vote, and others. I believe he's a chairman of a committee today. In America, we'll just follow the same pattern we always have, right? If a person is indicted, they're not on committees, they have the right to vote, but they have to go to trial. If just like we had a member of Fortenberry, he had the same ability. I removed him from committees, but he was found guilty, and I told him he needed to resign. That is my policies and principles on this, and I'd follow the same.
And Trump's being found liable?
I don't. I've been in meetings. I don't know.
Why not have this fight in the spending process, which you're talking about? You're going to have control over that. Why do you need the lever of the debt limit?
You know, that's a great question. And so the Democrats have done nothing in the Senate, so we passed it in the House. Now, if I only listened to Schumer and to Nancy Pelosi, they said you always had to do it now. If I follow history and I follow Vice President Biden, he said you had to do it then. And I really think when we sit back and look at the American public, when you think about a debt ceiling, it really is giving your children a credit card. So you're responsible for paying the credit card when they hit the limit, but I think you also need to be the responsible adult to look how they're spending the money. Why would you want to continue? If you're at $31 trillion in debt, that's larger than your entire economy by 20%. We've never been here before outside of World War II. And then if you look at our expenditures and our revenues, this is a really good thing that we should have this discussion as a whole Americans, right? So for the last 50 years, on average, we would spend roughly 21% of our GDP. Now, how much money would we bring in? On average, in the last 50 years, we would bring in about 17% of our GDP. Right now, we're about 20%. That's a lot of money. That's the most money we've ever had coming in. Now, we've only had in modern history 2 other times have we hit this highest percentage. That was in 1944 and 2000. So we have more money coming in. But how can this be a problem then? Because the Democrats, when they took the majority, they increased it by $6 trillion. They're now spending 23, 24% of the GDP. For 21 straight years, we have spent more money than we brought in. So you want us to continue down this same path? How can you look at your children or grandchildren? How can you simply say to them that I've wasted your future? And the country is too important. And is it so draconian that we would pull back hardworking taxpayers' money that we spent on COVID that wasn't spent? We appropriated, there's 50, 60 billion sitting there. They had 2 years to spend it, the pandemic's over. Shouldn't you bring that back to save? Wouldn't you do that in a family? Is it so crazy that you would spend the amount of money you spent 5 months ago? If you had a household and you hit your credit card's max and you were spending more than you were bringing in, wouldn't you simply say, maybe I shouldn't go to Starbucks tomorrow? Maybe make that coffee at home, right? Maybe we'd find something that we can eliminate our waste. Well, this is hard-working taxpayer money. Us as elected officials should do that, and I think this is the appropriate time.
Leader McConnell said earlier the U.S. is not going to default. He seemed pretty unequivocal. Are you in the same posture? Your confident default's not happening?
I think he says that because he saw the House take action. I mean, the reason why we could be so positive is because we didn't take the president's advice just to ignore everything. I mean, think about what's happening, okay? You got banks failing. Why? Because they spent so much money. Inflation happened, interest rates went up. The Silicon Valley Bank failed. 3 of the 4 largest banks' failures have just happened in the last 3 months. But the president never called the 4 leaders down. You've got millions of people coming across our border. Do you realize in the month of February, we caught more people coming across our border illegally on the terrorist watch list than we caught the entire time during the last administration? Do you feel safer because of it? And now we watch hundreds of thousands of people ready to come on Thursday. Does the Democrats or does the president have a bill to solve this problem? No, because he wouldn't meet. But we will pass one this week, just like we said when they told us before the debt limit was going to happen in July or August. We didn't want to put anybody in debt. We didn't want to put anybody in a challenge. So we passed something in April, even though the president wouldn't talk to us. So if McConnell's saying that, that's why I feel comfortable too, because we took action. Now, I haven't seen anything out of the Senate, and I don't know what the Senate needs. If if Schumer needs to put in that important bill he passed in March about naming March the Maine Maple Syrup Month, I'll put that in. Or if he wants to look at honoring UConn for winning a basketball game, if that's what he needs that he's worked so much time on, we'll put that in too, because I think it's too important to the American public. That's why we've taken action. Yes, sir.
There's several news organizations reporting tonight that George Santos is facing federal criminal charges that'll be indicted tomorrow.
You came late, didn't you? But go ahead, keep asking.
Well, let's do it then.
I don't want to point it out, but go ahead.
Well, if that's the case, should he resign?
Well, this is a good question, because if I look at the history in Congress, like you look over at Chairman Menendez, he got indicted too, right, from New Jersey? He's the chairman of a committee today, right? So I think in America, you're innocent until proven guilty, but what we've watched in past behavior here too, when there was another member indicted, I removed committee. I never put Santos on any committee. That member did get not just indicted, but was found guilty. I told him he had to resign. I would keep that same with any member here, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat.
Are you optimistic?
Yes, ma'am.
We've seen more mass killings now in Texas, and over the past few weeks, we've also seen young people killed when they were turning around in the wrong driveway, knocking on doors. What do you say to people who say that it's simply too easy to get a gun, people are not responsible with them, especially high-powered AR-15s and those kind of military assault weapons?
Now, I don't know all the background on the travesty that just happened in Texas, but what I've read so far, he was dishonorably discharged from the military, was he not? So he wouldn't qualify to be able to have that weapon. So then you want to find why was he, even though you have a law now that he shouldn't have had that. I mean, I think as an entire country, we've got to have a conversation. There's not one thing that's going to solve this. There are many challenges here. And this has gone on too long, too hard. And I mean, we got to take the politics out of it. Innocent people are dying, and we're going to have that discussion. Now, we had a law on the books, and don't quote me because I don't know all the facts here yet. It's just some things I read. Because we've watched, there was a shooting in Texas before in a church, devastating. It's almost, from what I've read so far, could be very similar, where this person was dishonorably discharged.
We're going to break in Memphis. The question is coming off the debt signal. That's where we want to focus on that signal. But we have major breaking news and a scoop from our own Natalie Winters. Natalie, thank you for joining us. By the way, Brian Costello, we're going to try to get to Brian tomorrow. We got to spend time on this Sequoia, because I can tell you behind the scenes the Sequoia thing's blowing up, and many serious senior people in this town are going, what are you guys talking about? Natalie, you've got some information from, so remember, Natalie said it yesterday, she was on here, Cash was on here, tomorrow's Comer Oversight's got a press conference, just like McCarthy has it right now. The press conference is going to lay out a lot of things. They asked, I think DOJ not to indict Hunter Biden today. This is going to be a big, and as Natalie said, show me the money. Right, it's time to put up or shut up. Natalie Winters, you've got some additional information, I think, what's going to happen tomorrow morning, ma'am.
Yes, show me the millions in this case. This is breaking news here first on War Room. It's exclusive. The country that people have been speculating about, this whole pay-for-play, this influence peddling scheme, while Joe Biden was in the office of the vice president, actually turns out to be Romania. This is the country that the House Oversight Committee will be talking about in their press conference tomorrow at 9 a.m. But they have records that show from 2015 to 2017, while Joe Biden was busy lecturing the country about how to best fix their corruption, Biden, through a variety of family associates, received $1 million from a company led by an individual. His name is Gabriel Popoviciu. And again, this money came to him through a Biden family associate, but they estimate it to be over $1 million. Like I said, this took place from 2015 to 2017. Some of the other things that they'll be covering in this press conference include a variety of LLCs, frankly, sort of shady shell companies that the Biden family created, and these are 8 or 9 family members. They identify over 20 of them, but they're so greedy that wasn't enough. So there are other LLCs that were established by Biden family associates, which they're going to walk us through tomorrow, how they funneled money back to members of the actual Biden family through these family associates. But then, to even make it more complex and confusing, a lot of the money that was coming in, particularly the funds from Chinese Communist Party linked entities, they were also engaged in a similar sort of shell game, trying to distract from the fact that these funds were, like I said, coming from Chinese Communist Party controlled entities.
Okay, so Natalie, this is not just big news. This is impeachment level stuff. You're saying tomorrow, Comer and the members of the Oversight Committee at this big 9 o'clock press conference, given that MTG and others have gone over to Treasury and seen these wire transfers, we've heard the rumors about them, that they're prepared to make the case tomorrow that do a bunch of shell companies that Joe Biden, while he was Obama's vice president, took through different ways $1 million from a company, through a family member or whatever, from a company in Romania, not Ukraine. It's a Romanian company?
Yeah, according to my source, I'm sure the committee tomorrow in their hearing, they will flesh out the details more. But this whole whistleblower incident, like I said, the pay-for-play scheme that broke news, I believe it was last Thursday, the country has been identified as Romania. This is obviously the focal point of the press conference, what I was talking about in terms of
shell game with the LLCs and the Chinese Communist Party funds and the sort of shady games being played by Biden family associates. That's, of course, the sideshow. I'm sure the War Room Posse is very well versed in all of that. But really, the breaking news here, and I can't stress enough, this is exclusive reporting. You're hearing it here first on War Room. I don't think there's been any rumblings of this anywhere else. The country, like I said, has been identified as Romania, and pay attention to the dates because it was 2015 to 2017. Hunter Biden was, of course, appointed to the Burisma board in 2014. So that sort of shows that this is a progression of his, of course, influence peddling schemes. Obviously, we're talking about Romania. This is, of course, towards the end of Joe Biden's tenure as vice president. So he was looking to cash out because I'm sure he saw the writing on the wall that he wouldn't be able to do it for much longer.
Also, could I have the individual's name again? The best take you can make on the pronunciation of that. Can we get that?
I apologize if I butcher the pronunciation. The name is Gabriel, and I'll spell the last name Popoviciu.
Okay, and that will all come out tomorrow. Also at the at Comer's at this press briefing tomorrow.
That is correct.
9 a.m. It's one of the reasons Natalie came up here. Real quickly, Natalie, before we go to break, this is, well, I tell you, we don't have enough time. We'll get you tomorrow morning. It's 9 a.m. One of the bigger questions here when this is laid out tomorrow, the Treasury Department's known about these wires. DOJ's known about these wires. Lisa Monaco has known about these wires. They've known all the elements you're going to see that Comer's pulling together tomorrow. And this is what the Natalie Winters, the handful, and I mean only small handful, of investigative reporters in this town, they've had to do this by their own energy and their own focus and their own intensity, urgency, and grit. The apparatus that's weaponized against Donald J. Trump for everything, they've known about this. Ladies and gentlemen, we're hurtling towards a constitutional crisis on many levels. It all goes back even deeper now at the roots, but to 3 November of 2020, the stolen election. We're going to be live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We'll pick up the press conference at 9 a.m. Up on Getter. We'll be here at 10 a.m. Natalie Winters will be reporting live. See you tomorrow morning at 10.